Casino workers, what's the worst loss or worst case of gambling addiction you've seen? I've seen big losses to about 100K, but the one that sticked out to me the most was a guy who started betting 50 a hand on blackjack, lost, came back and put up another 200 to 500 a hand while he is shaking. He went to the ATM 3 times. The last 500 he lost. As I was about to grab the chip, he held his 500 in green in the bet. I had to tell him to let go. I think he was down 10,000 that night and looks like his life saving. Never saw him again after. I dealt in 2 casinos in Australia for a total of around 5 years. So many stories, but the worst one would have to be the guy at 5 a.m. on Christmas morning who mentioned to the guy next to him that he had to be home by 7 a.m. so he could be there when his kids woke up and opened their presents, but was still at the table at 9 a.m. I saw a guy so glued to a slot machine that he just pissed his pants and kept playing. He was eventually removed by security. My buddy worked security in a casino. He would tell me about having to kick people who soiled themselves out every couple weeks. Sometimes it was older folks who may suffer from incontinence, or drunk people who were too trashed to even realize what they were doing. But mostly it was the degenerate gamblers who felt like their machine was due any moment now and they didn't want to risk anyone else stealing their win. Worked surveillance at a casino for a bit. Every time someone hit a jackpot at a slot machine, we'd pull up their account. They were always, 100% of the time, down on their lifetime earnings. This included people that hit for 50,000 plus. Worst one I saw was minus 375K for the year. In July. Same. I was in surveillance. For a couple years. I watched a guy win 450K one night. That win still had him down over $1 million lifetime. He also lost all 450K within the next month or two. This guy would come in and play 5-10K blackjack hands. I had a guy win 40K on a slot machine on one of his first pulls. The guy was so excited and went to cash out. The cage attendant gave him around 2,000 as his winning. When he asked where the rest of the money was, she smiled and said, "Child support." Dude had to be escorted out by security. Wait, I'm completely ignorant about this, but is that actually how it works? Can the casino see if you owe child support or have judgments against you before they dispense winnings? Yes. The casino I worked at, the police station had a database that was somehow connected to ours to see child support payments. I believe our programmer named it Deadbeat Dad Detector. That's exactly what happened, lol. There was a small police office in the casino for these situations to ensure the deadbeats left the grounds of the casino. My mother-in-law was at a casino in Vegas when there was some kind of altercation that involved a gun. The police told everyone to get down. While crouching on the floor, people were still reaching up to play the slots. Reminds me of a story one of the security guys at the New England Patriots Stadium told me. A guy's wife was having a heart attack and the EMTs had her on a gurney and were with her husband heading down towards the exit near where the ambulance was parked. As they got close to the gate, the husband said to her, "They're bringing you to Norwood Hospital, so I should be able to meet you there about 30 minutes after the game ends," and turned and went back to his seat to watch the rest of the game. The security guy said that them and the EMTs dropped their jaws, but the wife didn't seem surprised in the slightest. I was a hostess at a casino about 10 years ago. I worked on the top floor and normally watched people on the roulette tables below between orders. I saw a guy turn 50K into 250K. He was awesome, tipped us all and left. I carried on with my shift, went for my lunch at about 1 a.m. then went to the smoking area to find the same guy that had won with his head in his hands. He asked me for a cigarette, so I gave him one. I noticed he was crying. He proceeded to tell me how he went for some drinks, came back and lost it all and more. It was a regular thing seeing people crying in the smoking area, but this guy really fucked up. Worked in finance at a casino. We had access to everyone's lifetime win. It's always called win. And I ran a query one day to sort players with over $100,000 in lifetime winnings, and it was 300 or so players, mostly blackjack and baccarat players. Did it for people with over 100,000 in lifetime losses. Over 4,000. So casinos budget based on theoretical win, Theo for short, and it's an estimate of how much a player will lose on every trip. It's insanely accurate. Like by 10 trips we have a pretty good idea of what type of player you are and will market to you accordingly to bump you to that next level. Oh, you lose on average $350 a trip? I bet free meals will get you to 500. And it does. Those players' cards? They track everything. So we know that you spend $350 a trip but you get comp $200, leaving a profit of only $150 a trip. Well, that's going to drop your comps down a level so your expenses drop. Daily reports would come out with people whose expenses are above or equal to average daily theoretical. Casinos, if you can handle the guilt, are a great place if you love analytics. I miss it, that portion of it, but I have a conscience, and explicitly marketing to fresh off the boat Asians left me with a bad taste in my mouth, and I left after less than a year. I saw people lose $10 million a year, and this was a local regional casino in upstate New York. I worked for a slot machine company, and a woman called us saying our machine bugged her and took all her money, about $3,000. She said she pressed the button once and it kept playing for her, and in 5 minutes all her money was gone. Of course the machine has logs and we had cameras. We had to show her video of her playing for almost 2 hours, pressing the buttons each time. She still told us that she did it once and it took 5 minutes, and demanded her money back. Otherwise she wasn't going to be able to pay her rent and feed her kids. She called the police. Where I live, the state police manage gambling. They came and they told us she had no children, and then tried to use a stun gun in her purse on our technician. It didn't go well for her after that. I worked in the cage at the time. Guy came up and withdrew $10K from his checking and went out and played. Came back 30 minutes later and did it again. Another 30 minutes and did it again. Came back a fourth time and then started doing cash advances against his credit cards. Goes through all of them over the next 5 to 6 hours. Right before my shift ends, he's at my window going through every card in his wallet. All of them are declining, and he asks if we offer credit. Which thank God we didn't. Altogether he probably lost a bit more than $120,000 in a night. Not the most I've seen, but he clearly couldn't afford to lose that much. How is it legal to get a cash advance on credit card at a casino ATM? Monstrous. People asked for advances against their social security checks. Worked at a casino for a few years in my early 20s doing front of house executive / high level player engagement. There was a woman in her 70s who played big but always made some money back. Well, she finally hit for around $1 million and promptly told the casino she would no longer be gambling or visiting. She was steadfast in that promise. Fast forward a year, and the casino wants their money back. They invite her down with all of the comps for her birthday. Okay, but I'm still not gambling. We extended the invitation and gave villas / free everything to every gambling aged family member she had. It was probably 15 plus people there to celebrate her birthday. By the end of the week, the family members gambled nearly $700,000 of her money back into the casino. Back when Spice / K2 was big, we had a group of 4 dudes from a neighboring metro come in to gamble. They quietly admitted their hustle, but screamed new money. Private jet to the airport, helicopter to the casino, Audemars Piguet / Parmigiani Fleurier watches. It was almost like a meme of what not to do if you're making illicit money. Tipped like crazy when they came in. In 4 days, they lost around $1.5 million, and left in a taxi. By far the best guy I had. He was the epitome of what the fuck levels of money. Flew in with his wife, both late 50s, on a private jet, and his early 30s mistress flew in an hour later in another smaller one. He owned both. Lost $4.2 million over a 3-day weekend. Didn't give a single fuck. Gave me $10K to drive him to the airport 20 minutes away because he didn't want to wait on his personal driver. Never saw him again. Had a really cool dude from a neighboring city who played recklessly but always managed to crush it. It was baffling. I asked the bosses what his losses were, expecting it to be insane, but he was sitting at around plus $1.5 million. He and I would always go to the strip club after to party and celebrate. Fast forward a month or two and he somehow got my personal cell number. Calls me when I'm sleeping and asks to borrow $500. Promises he's gonna double it. Went in the next day to find out he spent every dollar he had, plus ran up an insane line of credit, and had to be escorted off of the property. His name is wildly common, so I'd never be able to find him, but always wondered how he turned out. A lot of these stories have made me sad, but you worked for a bunch of solid gold fucks. Fuck man, someone was out with life-changing money. But no. God, fuck those people. I am genuinely angry that your workplace couldn't target her, but got her money through her family instead. The optimist in me died with that job, haha. The people with that money, they were more focused on having fun and feeling something from the casino. It truly can be intoxicating. The meals, the noise, the absurd penthouses, and other perks of being a VIP. Most high-level guests were first or second generation money, but at the end of the day it's merely another form of entertainment for the rich. Some race cars or boats, others collect horses, others buy mansions. The people I was surrounded with liked to gamble. It truly was a wacky world on both sides. As far as the house, They'll make money whether it's the people dropping thousands on a hand of blackjack or the grandma riding the penny slots. We averaged 15 to 20 million in profit a day. The entire industry is shark teeth draped in velvet. I live in Australia, which most people don't know has the highest rate of gambling losses per capita when compared globally. You can gamble at any pub/bar in Australia as long as you are 18 or older. In one state alone in the last 3 months of 2024, the total losses were 2.2 billions. It's very hard to watch but hard to fix as it's legal and socially acceptable. At least when you go to Vegas, it's a trip with friends and our family and people are having fun. No one is really having fun here, they're like robots on the slot machines. I have regularly seen people blow through a whole paycheck in minutes and then try to borrow money to win it back. Or get payday loans with insane interest rates. It's a big problem here, but there's too much money involved for anyone to change anything. Had a lady in a nurse's uniform walk out the front of the casino. Stopped by where I was standing and just blurt out, "I just lost my rent and grocery money." The only thing I could say was, "Oh no." She then looked at me and asked if I had any money she could borrow. I told her sorry but no. Former addict, 5 years clean here since January 1st, 2020. I once had 2 doctor's appointments in the same day. One was for my knee and the other was just a routine checkup, but they were spaced out between 3 hours. Since I wasn't at work that day, I drove 60 miles to the casino only to lose $700 in that time frame. I did, however, make my second appointment, so that was A+. Hell, I'm more shocked by the 60-mile drive each way than the $700. In a 3-hour time period that's barely an hour in between to spend losing money. Either way, good job staying clean, keep it up. Thank you. You just made me think about that drive and the casinos in my state. I think most of them are less than 5 minutes off the freeway. I can't say that's the norm for other states. My first time to Vegas, I went with a large group of people. One of the boyfriends started off strong at blackjack. At one point he was up $300 from the 25 he had started with. But then he lost it all, which for me meant he lost $25. That was not how he took it. And for the rest of the time we were there he tried to win the $300 back. I don't know how much money he lost, but I do know he had drained his checking account and maxed out a credit card. He didn't win back any money. I have one friend who goes to casinos to gamble. The one time I went with him he went in with 1,000 euros, lost half of it, then managed to get back to about 700 before we left. As we left he was real excited about coming out of the evening up 200. I lost $17.50 at a claw machine in Atlantic City. It was 25 cents ago. I was 8 years old. I remember shaking my head and thinking, damn, I'd better not ever gamble. Never did. And never touched a claw machine again. I worked in casinos for 10 years. The worst gamblers were the ones who won on their first visit. You gambled and got lucky that you lost. I'm a high-limits baccarat dealer and I have many regulars I see every single day. There's one lady who plays 3 to 4K a hand and gets so far down that when she hits for a bonus and makes 150K she barely cares because it doesn't even put her at even. How did you get started dealing? I'm interested in learning if you don't mind sharing. Casinos will usually advertise new dealer classes when they're offering them. You get paid for the class. It's usually about 4 to 6 weeks and they'll teach you 2 major games and some smaller ones. During the interview for the class they'll give you a math test you have to pass before they'll let you in. It's a pretty easy job and pays pretty good. As a new dealer you'll definitely get stuck with grave shift for the first year as one of the downsides. Ex-Aussie dealer here as well. Had a semi-regular play on my table and it was pretty much one-on-one the entire night. They had been losing but not an astronomical amount, maybe around 5K loss. I hadn't seen them for about a year but didn't think much of it because of rotating shifts, games and areas etc. Got to the point in the night where the pit was closing, so around 3 a.m., and they were pleading my supervisor to keep the table open so they could win back some of their money. The supervisor was having none of it with a too bad so sad kind of attitude. Wasn't the best customer service but it was the end of the night and we had other $50 tables open they could go to. They then asked if they could get a complimentary room to stay as they were one of the higher tier members and they had dropped a bit of money. I think they assumed they had played enough to have gotten enough membership points to cover a room. Turns out they didn't and couldn't get a room for the night. They then broke down when they realized they didn't have enough money to get a cab home. They then proceeded to tell me how they had excluded themselves from the casino, which explained why I hadn't seen them for a while, as well as how they had spent so much time and money going to counseling and now they were back at the casino and was so disappointed in themselves. They then told me their legitimate fears about their just turned 18-year-old daughter potentially picking up a gambling problem as well, because unfortunately the casino was a night out destination at the time, so the exposure was there. They were saying all of this while crying with their head down. The whole thing was devastating to watch, and I asked if they wanted to request gambling help. I also told my pit manager that they needed help. He just looked at them, locked up my float and walked away. They didn't request any gambling help, and unfortunately you couldn't exclude someone from the casino at the time unless they voluntarily requested it. Despite the clear admission of having gambling problems, the conditions where a casino would step in to support someone was limited to them voluntarily requesting help. Was hoping so much that they would say the words to request help, but they didn't. They got up and walked away with their head down, and I think it was the last time I ever saw them. They seemed like a legitimately nice person, especially compared to other regulars. This was probably a decade ago, and I still think about how they're doing every so often. Fortunately, I moved on from the casino and am no longer in that industry. Even before this incident, I was already 1 foot out the door. It's a horrible place to work in, though the pay was comparatively good and gave me financial freedoms that I likely wouldn't have gotten elsewhere. It was always a bit of a moral dilemma for me. Guy started with $300 and could do no wrong. When he got up to $5,000, we asked if he wanted to go to a high rollers pit because people would jump in on his game and mess him up. He said yes if I followed him there. In the high rollers pit he again could do no wrong, but what he was doing was chasing in bets he lost with higher bets. This worked out for him for a long time. He got up to almost 100 grand of $300 bucks. He called his girlfriend to get packed. They are going to Vegas to get married. He started losing. I told him to stop when he got to 80,000. He told me he just lost 20 grand and if he made it back he would quit. I told him he won 80, stop. By the time the girlfriend got there he lost it all and had $3,000 in markers. When she got there he got up and held her and cried. I worked at a casino as security for about a year, so I have plenty of stories. But in relation to your question, I saw a guy come in with a group of friends, never seen him before. He proceeded to win 10K that night on a couple slots. I saw him come back every night for the next month. Always walking out with his head down. The casino I worked at was smallish, but every decent payout had to be done with security present. So yeah, he went through it all thinking he had the system figured out and then some. Lots of people had similar fates. A guy that randomly came into the casino I work at played a progressive blackjack side bet, and wouldn't you know it hit for 500K. Dude bought a Rolex and got his girlfriend a pair of boobs. Over the course of the next 1 to 2 years he was on a slow decline because you can tell he was starting to get into drugs and his bets were getting bigger and bigger. He disappeared for a while and heard from coworkers he overdosed and passed away. Winning that jackpot was probably the worst thing for that guy. Worked in a casino restaurant in my 20s. I'd finish my shift, walk through the casino to my car. When walking back through in the morning I'd see the same people wearing the same clothes on the same machines. Only difference, it's coffee with their cigarettes now instead of soda. Had a guy sit down at a $15 table and turn $200 into around $13,000 in about 30 minutes. He kept pressing and kept winning. Before long he had a small crowd and full barrel of $500 chips and was working on a second. I finished the shoe and told him that he beat the casino and it was time to run away and never come back. Instead of walking he starts playing 3 hands at 1.5K each. 3 table losses in a row, and he'd given it all back and started making trips to the ATM. Next thing you know, he was down about 2.5K and sobbing to the pit boss because he'd spent everything he had and couldn't get out of the parking garage. He was given a parking voucher and put himself on the banned list. Felt sick for the guy. Also watched a few jackpots get zeroed out for child support, but those always got a laugh from the table. I'm not a casino worker, however I worked at a gas station that sold scratch tickets. I was doing a 3 to 11 p.m. shift on a Friday, and about 9 p.m. this guy comes in all hyped up that he got paid and wanted to buy some $10 scratchers. Not a problem, I say, and go to grab 5 of the $10 tickets he asked for. He stops me before I can get them out and says, "No, I want to pick. I have a system with the numbers." Cue my eye roll and exasperated internal sigh as these guys take forever. 5 minutes later he is rung up and heads not out of the store, no, to the ticket stand at the back to scratch them. He comes back 10 minutes later, wants me to check them for him, so I do. I can't recall if he won anything or not on these 5. But if he did, it wasn't enough. He goes for round 2 of the same thing, 5 more $10 tickets, same hyped up energy, same process of picking and scratching. This continues for an hour and a half, all the while he is getting more and more anxious, and as his hype was replaced with this deranged fear. The process became faster as he started panicking and picking faster and faster as he spiraled down a pit. I was talking to him, telling him that it's okay to stop and no one is guaranteed to win and there is no system after the second round to deaf ears. In total he bought all our $10 scratchers but one lost and lost about $600. I got to listen to him call his girlfriend and explain he lost the rent money and hear her yell at him knowing exactly what happened. I got to listen to him call his boss legit crying asking for help. It was sad, and any time I feel like gambling I think of that guy and I make another choice. Shit ruins lives for people who can't control it. Did you buy the last one though? Bet it was a big winner. I did at the end of my shift. We had a lottery book with odds of each prize on each ticket type as well as the overall odds of any prize. After seeing how many times he lost, I took a chance and won 100. I was glad that I had an extra $90 but pretty conflicted about what I just watched, so it kind of soured the mood. I think I went and bought a quarter and some munchies with it. So it was wasted anyways. My wife works for a casino. One of their high rollers is known for losing obscene amounts of money. So far, due to all his losses, the casino has gifted him a brand new Bentley Continental, a 71 Hemi Cuda that had been meticulously restored, 2 different Escalades, including a brand new Blackwing last year, and a Lucid Air. He loses a lot of money to that casino in order for them to buy him cars like that. And there are others who get the same treatment. Did he actually take the cars? Usually they get the option to take the cash value of the car instead, which goes right back to the casino. He took them all. These weren't giveaways available for anybody to win. They were procured specifically for him. This intrigues me. Like, how is all of that organized? For the luxury cars, they just gifted them to him knowing he likes fancy cars. I believe the casino contacted his wife about the Cuda, just as a special thank you for the millions of dollars in revenue. Well, I have 16 years in the casino business. I was a dealer for about 3 years and a pit boss for 9. The saddest thing I had witnessed happened over time. There was a genuinely very nice couple that came in and played Let It Ride. The game is atrocious odds-wise, utterly boring, and I was always miserable dealing it. The woman was in her early 50s, quite overweight, and wheelchair-bound, and the husband was very thin and mousy. The husband was always the one to play, and the wife would sit behind him. They didn't even bet heavily, but they were there 7 days a week for hours and hours a day, weeks in a row. As time went on, they stopped being as nice to the staff and to each other. They were both obviously not taking care of themselves as they had been, hygienically speaking. Eventually one night, the husband turned around to ask the wife for more money and she absolutely broke down in a shaking, sobbing fit. Just uncontrollably, inconsolable. He was pretty demanding and she was slow handing over the last couple of 20s out of her purse and she said, "Tom, this is it. If you lose this we won't eat this month." I absolutely refused to take the money, called my supervisor over and explained the situation, and thankfully, unlike a lot of joints, they backed that decision up. That was very early on in my career and it really hit me hard that I had taken tens of thousands of dollars from those people. If I remember right, we evicted them lifetime and connected them with the state problem gambling service. When I was a pit boss, watching a table in high limit, I saw a guy buy in for $5,000 and run it up to about $250,000 by the time I went home. Badass run. So I come back in the next day at 5 p.m. and the guy is still there. Not surprising. The guy has about $125K in chips in front of him. So I say, "Oh man, Dave took a bit of a thumping while I was sleeping." The pit boss I was relieving was standing off to the side making the stop talking gesture, so I chuckled and went over to get him relieved. Turns out the guy had given it all back. And was in $350,000 more. Oof. Probably the craziest thing I had seen in all of those years was a guy, again in high limit, I was there all the damn time once I was a pit boss, who got beat up all night. Just hours of just getting thumped. After a particularly nasty beat on some splits and double downs, he said, "I lose one more hand, I'm shitting on the floor." I informed him that would be a super bad idea and went over to call surveillance and security. It was right at the end of a shoe, so this I'm calling while the dealer is shuffling. Security is up there close, but not too close. Surveillance is watching. First hand out of the shoe, dealer 10, peeks, rolls over the ace. Quicker than I could blink, the dude has his pants down grunting. Gaming commission and security were none too happy arresting the guy, but I was entertained. Every one of these anecdotes was well told and nauseating. Well, thank you. I had so many after all of those years. Those are just the ones off the top of my head. I'm curious about those people gambling hundreds of thousands Are they rich enough they can gamble all the time with all that money? I figure gambling hundreds of thousands would bankrupt someone real quick, and if they had that kind of money they would know not to gamble with it, unless they were new to it and liked the feeling of winning even though in the long run they're losing. I would say typically yes. I very seldomly saw situations where I felt like someone was giving away their entire life savings. We did have a very prominent man come in who owned a college bookstore and gambled away his entire family's lifetime savings. That was sad.